Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Claire turns down Kyle's ring in Amanda's dangerous attempt to win Phyllis. While Claire Newman turns down Kyle Abbott's ring, Amanda Sinclair will take a chance for Phyllis Summers. Kyle is making every effort to persuade Claire to move on from their past, but she is refusing to answer his pointed question. It appears like Claire will turn down Kyle's proposal of marriage by refusing to accept his ring. This will demonstrate to Claire that Kyle isn't truly considering her needs in this partnership. Claire didn't want to jump into holy matrimony. Instead, she wanted to take small steps towards restoring trust. According to Y&R teasers, Kyle will experience a setback rather than advance with Claire. Kyle will be devastated, but Diane Jenkins Abbott and Jack Abbott will soon offer him guidance. As they work out the details of their partnership, Victor Newman and Kane Ashby will engage in a game of hardball. Kane will covertly plot against Victor and everyone else in Genoa City, but he will be compelled to comply with Victor's intentions against Jabbo. Amanda may brag to Phyllis on Tuesday's broadcast because she is aware that Kane's grand takeover plan is still in place. This might be the only way to soothe Phyllis, who is going crazy by Kane's failure to carry out his plan. Kane informed Phyllis and Jason Thompson's character Billy Abbott that he was abandoning the plan, but he just wanted the important people in town to let their guard down. Since it's obvious that Kane is still up to no good, Amanda might betray him by telling Phyllis the news too soon. Amanda might caution Phyllis not to blow this as she is a wild card who frequently causes chaos. By providing Phyllis with updates, Amanda might be taking a chance, so she might advise Phyllis not to make her regret it. Victoria's bargain, Claire's marriage solution, and Amanda's risk. For Phyllis Summers, Amanda Sinclair will take a significant risk. Kyle Abbott is blindsided by Claire Grace Newman in the meanwhile. Let's discuss the upcoming events in the CBS soap opera as you continue reading. The hope of Kyle Abbott. Let's begin with Kyle, who has asked Claire to marry him. Diane Jenkins Abbott and Jack Abbott fear their son will not receive the response he is hoping for. Naturally, the young couple's relationship has some shattered trust, which contributes to that. Kyle will not receive the response he desires when he makes a marriage proposal. The marriage answer of Claire Grace Newman. Claire might agree if she were a sentimental person. The blonde, on the other hand, is more sensible and will never say yes in the current situation. Claire already feels deceived by Kyle, and she is aware that marriage is a lifelong commitment. Therefore, even if he might not comprehend her motivations, Claire may already be aware that he is not the right fit for her. Later in the week, Claire forms an alliance with Holden Novak. Despite having romantic feelings for Claire, the young man is afraid to tell her. They might become more than simply buddies if they collaborate as a team. Naturally, that would make Kane's directives to Holden more difficult. Amanda Sinclair's serious danger. Amanda is back in Genoa City, according to Tuesday, September 2nd spoilers for The Young and the Restless. The lawyer is aware that Billy Flynn's character, Kane Ashby, has backed out of his takeover intentions. Amanda is also aware that Kane is merely deflecting attention from himself in order to attack at the most unexpected moment. Phyllis, meanwhile, is terrified that she will be dismissed once more. Amanda is willing to take a significant risk in order to assist her. Is the attorney hinting that it may not be completely finished yet? The hard bargain of Victor Newman. He'll drive a hard deal with Kane over with Victor Newman. Kane was already backed into a position and subjected to blackmail by the patriarch. What is this new arrangement, and is Victor overconfident? The tycoon appears very certain that Victor will prevail, despite Amanda's warning about him. So, Y&R enthusiasts, keep an eye out. Claire Grace Newman stood across from Kyle Abbott, her expression caught between hesitation and anguish as the velvet box lingered in his open hand, the glitter of the ring within reflecting all the hope he had poured into this moment. And yet that hope was about to be dashed because Claire, despite her lingering affection for him, could not bring herself to accept what she saw as an ill-timed proposal that glossed over wounds not yet healed, and so she slowly closed his fingers around the ring, whispering words that stung like ice, words about needing trust, patience, and genuine rebuilding rather than a rushed leap into matrimony meant to paper over cracks that still threatened to break wide open. And as Kyle's face fell with devastation, Diane Jenkins Abbott and Jack Abbott, watching from afar with a mix of maternal fear and paternal sorrow, prepared to console their son, knowing that while his heart was breaking, the rejection was not cruelty but a necessary truth from a woman. Unwilling to compromise her sense of caution, and yet Kyle, ever stubborn, insisted inwardly that if he could not win her with a ring, he would redouble his efforts through persistence, even if persistence might push Claire further away. For in her mind, marriage was sacred and could not be rushed simply to satisfy his need for stability, and so she walked away, seeking clarity, unaware that Holden Novak, the enigmatic young man with an unspoken crush on her, was waiting in the wings, ready to provide a steadier friendship that could one day blossom into something deeper. And this shifting alliance of hearts left Kane Ashby sharpening his hidden agenda as he watched all of Genoa City unravel in tangled webs of loyalty and betrayal, for Kane had never truly abandoned his grand plan to take over and manipulate the power structures of the town but instead chose to lull Billy Abbott, Phyllis Summers, and even Victor Newman himself into a false sense of calm, pretending that his schemes were shelved when in reality he was simply letting the sharks circle each other while he waited for the perfect moment to strike. And Amanda Sinclair, sharp-minded lawyer with her own insecurities about loyalty, recognized that Kane's withdrawal was nothing more than a smokescreen, and so she faced the precarious choice of confiding in Phyllis, who was unraveling at the seams, desperate for reassurance that her gamble with Kane had not left her powerless, and Amanda, with every instinct warning her against it, decided to gamble as well, whispering the truth that Kane's plan was far from dead, cautioning Phyllis not to destroy the fragile advantage they had by rushing into her usual brand of impulsive revenge, but knowing full well that Phyllis was a wild card capable of lighting a match before Amanda could douse the flames, and thus the danger lay not only in Kane's deception but in Amanda's risk of attaching herself to Phyllis's volatility, for by revealing Kane's lingering threat she had given Phyllis a loaded weapon, and Phyllis, obsessed with proving she was not irrelevant, was eager to wield it, her mind spinning with fantasies of revenge and redemption, while Victor Newman sat in his tower of power, convinced that he had Kane under control, cornered by a bargain that gave Victor the upper hand. Yet Kane was no ordinary pawn and was already plotting to turn Victor's confidence into overconfidence, preparing to twist the arrangement into an opportunity for betrayal that could topple Jabot, crush Newman's stability, and ignite Genoa City's corporate battlefield once more. And as Victor underestimated him, Amanda's voice of warning echoed in the background, though ignored by those drunk on the illusion of dominance, leaving Claire wrestling with guilt over hurting Kyle himself desperate not to lose her completely, Diane urging patience, Jack urging wisdom, Holden quietly yearning for his chance, Phyllis teetering between clarity and chaos, Amanda risking her reputation to keep her friend from spiraling, Kane smiling in shadows as he held his cards close, and Victor, believing himself untouchable, walking into a storm that could rewrite alliances across the city, proving once again that in Genoa City no proposal, no rejection, no whispered secret was ever just about love or loyalty. It was about power, survival, and the dangerous games that everyone, from Claire to Kyle to Amanda to Victor, was forced to play. Kyle Abbott sat alone in the Abbott living room after Claire's rejection, the diamond ring he had so carefully chosen now weighing heavily in his palm, not as a symbol of hope but of his failure to understand the depth of Claire Grace Newman's hesitation. He replayed every word she had spoken, her insistence that trust had to be rebuilt slowly, that marriage was too much, too soon, and though he knew she was right, his heart could not accept it. For Kyle, the proposal had been more than romance, it had been a lifeline, an anchor to steady his chaotic world. Diane Jenkins Abbott hovered nearby, maternal concern etched into every line of her face, whispering that he should give Claire space, that love needed time to heal. Jack Abbott, ever the voice of perspective, urged his son to learn from mistakes rather than trying to bulldoze past them. Yet Kyle's pride stung almost as much as his heartbreak. He felt blindsided, certain that Claire loved him, certain that the answer should have been yes, and the rejection made him question whether her feelings had shifted towards someone else, perhaps even Holden Novak, whose quiet loyalty was becoming increasingly visible. Meanwhile, Claire herself walked the streets of Genoa City with tears threatening her composure. She had not meant to wound Kyle so deeply, but she could not deny that something inside her resisted the idea of binding herself to him for life. She wanted to believe in him, yet the betrayals and disappointments of their past weighed too heavily. When Holden appeared, offering her a listening ear without judgment, she felt a strange comfort. He was steady where Kyle was impulsive, patient where Kyle was demanding. Holden longed to confess his feelings, but he kept them buried, content, for now, to be the friend she needed. Still, Kane Ashby's whispered orders to Holden lingered in the background, muddying what could have been a simple friendship. Holden was torn between loyalty to Kane, who had given him guidance and opportunity, and his own growing devotion to Claire. This internal conflict would only intensify as Kane's schemes deepened, drawing Holden further into a dangerous game of manipulation. Kane's duplicity was masterful. To the world, he had abandoned his corporate takeover plan, assuring Phyllis Summers, Billy Abbott, and even Amanda Sinclair that he was finished with plotting against Jabbo and Newman Enterprises. He wanted them to lower their guard, to underestimate him, because Kane thrived when no one expected his next move. Behind closed doors, however, he was still orchestrating a plan that would place him at the center of Genoa City's corporate chessboard. His mind raced with strategy, how to play Victor Newman against Jack Abbott, how to leverage Phyllis's desperation for relevance, how to weaponize Amanda's loyalty. Every player was a piece on his board, and Kane was determined to be the one who declared checkmate. Amanda Sinclair knew better than most how dangerous Kane could be when underestimated. She had seen the flicker of cunning in his eyes when he claimed he was stepping away. She had sensed the falseness in his promises of peace. And so she returned to Genoa City determined to warn someone. But her choice of confidant was perhaps her riskiest move yet. Phyllis Summers was unraveling, consumed by fear that Kane had abandoned her, terrified of becoming irrelevant once more in the high-stakes games of power that swirled around her. Phyllis was a woman who thrived on schemes, who could not stand still while others moved without her, and Amanda knew that by feeding her information, she might be giving her a spark that would ignite into a blaze. Yet Amanda also knew that Phyllis needed hope, and so she leaned across the table at Society and whispered that Kane was not done, that his plan was still alive, that Phyllis should hold her ground and not let despair consume her. But Amanda's words came with a warning. Don't make me regret telling you this. If you blow this up before Kane makes his move, you'll destroy everything. Phyllis's eyes lit with a mixture of relief and dangerous determination. She had her opening again, a reason to fight, a chance to prove that she was still a player in Genoa City. But Amanda walked away uneasy, knowing she had just handed a loaded weapon to someone with a history of misfires. The danger was real. If Phyllis acted rashly, she could expose Kane's scheme before it was ready, ruining Amanda's credibility and leaving them both vulnerable to his wrath. Across town, Victor Newman sat in his study at the ranch, sipping brandy with his usual air of unshakable authority. He believed Kane was in his pocket, bound by a hard bargain that forced compliance. To Victor, this was just another day of manipulation, another pawn under his control. He outlined plans to weaken Jabbo, confident that Kane's cooperation would ensure victory. But Victor's certainty was also his blind spot. He had underestimated Kane before, and he was doing so again. Amanda's warnings meant nothing to him. He considered her loyalty misplaced and her insight irrelevant. Victor saw himself as untouchable, but Kane was already calculating how to use Victor's overconfidence against him. The patriarch might believe he was driving the game, but Kane was quietly building toward a moment when he would flip the board entirely. As the week unfolded, tension rippled across Genoa City. Kyle struggled with rejection, searching for ways to win Claire back, though every attempt only highlighted the gulf between them. Claire bonded more with Holden, though she resisted any romantic entanglement, insisting she needed time to heal from Kyle's betrayal. Holden, loyal but conflicted, found himself drawn deeper into Kane's orbit, unsure if he could resist when ordered to influence Claire's choices. Phyllis grew bolder, strutting with newfound confidence after Amanda's revelation, her mind churning with schemes she barely understood herself. Amanda watched in dread, realizing too late that Phyllis was not capable of restraint. Kane, hidden in shadows, smiled at the chaos, each ripple serving his broader plan. And Victor, sitting in his study, believed he was tightening his grip, even as the ground beneath him began to shift. The stage was set for collision. Claire's rejection of Kyle was not merely a personal heartbreak, it was the first domino, sending Kyle spiraling, Holden rising, Kane maneuvering, and Amanda risking everything. Amanda's gamble with Phyllis could either secure her friend's loyalty or ruin them both, depending on how long Phyllis could keep from self-sabotage. Kane's false surrender had fooled nearly everyone, but Amanda knew better, and Victor's refusal to heed her warning would cost him dearly. And through it all, Genoa City buzzed with whispers of shifting alliances, of marriages broken and proposals refused, of secrets shared too soon, of bargains struck in arrogance. In a world where trust was scarce and ambition abundant, every word, every action carried the weight of consequence. Claire thought she was simply turning down a ring, Amanda thought she was simply giving a friend reassurance, Kane thought he was simply delaying a plan, but in reality, each of them was setting into motion a chain of events that would shake Genoa City to its core, proving once more that love and power are never separate, and that every decision in this town is as dangerous as it is dramatic. Kyle Abbott could not shake the image of Claire walking away, the rejection replaying in his mind like a cruel film loop. Every time he opened the ring box, the diamond mocked him with a brilliance that no longer held promise, only pain. He told himself that Claire had been unfair, that she still loved him but was too stubborn to admit it, and yet deep down he knew she had every right to pause. His desperate need for certainty had blinded him to the truth. Love couldn't be forced, and rushing her only drove her further away. Diane, ever protective, hovered close, urging patience and insisting that sometimes letting go was the only way to bring someone back. Jack advised him to focus on rebuilding trust, not making grand gestures, but Kyle's jealousy was beginning to simmer. The thought of Holden Novak growing closer to Claire gnawed at him, threatening to turn his heartbreak into anger. Claire, meanwhile, wrestled with guilt. She cared for Kyle, but the foundation of their relationship was shaky, riddled with betrayals that still stung. Accepting his proposal would have been a lie, to him and to herself. Holden's steady presence gave her a sense of calm she hadn't felt in months. He asked nothing of her, offered no grand promises, simply listened. That simplicity was refreshing compared to Kyle's intensity. Holden, however, was caught in his own storm. Kane's subtle instructions to keep an eye on Claire haunted him. He hadn't agreed to betray her, but Kane had a way of making even silence feel like complicity. Holden feared that if he crossed Kane, the older man would make him pay dearly. Phyllis Summers, emboldened by Amanda Sinclair's whispered assurance that Kane's scheme was still alive, strutted through society like a queen regaining her crown. She felt relevant again, important again, and her imagination raced with possibilities. If Kane pulled off his takeover, she could finally prove her worth to Genoa City. Amanda watched her warily, regretting her choice more with each passing moment. She had meant her words as reassurance, not as fuel for Phyllis's reckless fire. Be careful, Amanda warned for the third time. Don't push Kane too far. Don't act before it's time. But Phyllis only smirked. Relax. I know exactly what I'm doing. The truth was, she didn't. Her impulsiveness was legendary, and Amanda feared the inevitable explosion. Kane, on the other hand, was delighted. He saw Phyllis's growing confidence as both an asset and a liability. If she played her role well, she could distract everyone at Jabbo and Newman long enough for him to make his move. If she overplayed her hand, she would attract suspicion, and suspicion pointed at Phyllis meant eyes were not on him. Either way, he benefited. Kane's mind spun with calculations. He had spent weeks lulling the town into complacency, convincing them he had abandoned his ambition. Now, with Victor Newman leaning on him, Jack Abbott distracted by Kyle's heartache, and Phyllis desperate to prove herself, Kane believed the perfect storm was forming. Victor Newman, ever the strategist, believed himself the sole puppeteer. He was convinced Kane had no choice but to comply with his bargain. In Victor's eyes, Kane was already beaten, reduced to a pawn in a Newman game. He poured himself another glass of brandy and dismissed Amanda's warnings as the anxious paranoia of someone who didn't understand real power. But Victor's arrogance was precisely what Kane had been counting on. The patriarch's confidence blinded him to Kane's subtle maneuvers. The trap was nearly set. Amanda, feeling the walls closing in, confided in Devon Hamilton, hoping his steadiness could help her see the situation clearly. I may have made a mistake, she admitted. Phyllis doesn't know how to wait, and if she makes a move too soon, Kane will know it was me who tipped her off. Devon, calm but firm, urged her to protect herself. Phyllis has burned bridges before. Don't let her drag you down with her. You need to decide where your loyalty really lies. Amanda knew he was right, but it was already too late. Phyllis had tasted power again, and there was no stopping her now. As Friday loomed in Genoa City, each storyline teetered on the brink. Kyle prepared to confront Claire once more, determined to fight for her even as his jealousy clouded his judgment. Claire leaned on Holden, torn between friendship and the beginnings of something more. Holden wrestled with Kane's orders, knowing that betrayal of Claire would shatter his heart. Phyllis plotted in the shadows, her hunger for relevance pushing her toward another reckless gamble. Amanda watched helplessly, knowing the secret she shared had lit a fire she couldn't control. Kane moved his pieces with satisfaction, confident that everyone else was playing into his hands. And Victor Newman, perched high in his tower, believed victory was certain, never realizing that his overconfidence would soon be his undoing. The next week promised devastation, as Claire's choice, Amanda's gamble, Phyllis's recklessness, Kane's duplicity, and Victor's pride all collided in a storm that would shake Genoa City, proving once again that in this world, love and power were never separate, and every decision came at a cost.